I think these are such wonderful things that you can actually explore with only limited palette of colors. Let's not have this mindset that art is something inferior to science or something which is does not match with science at all. Even after 100 years, if I was still alive and I was doing a painting and if somebody would say, "Yeah, is this your best painting?" I would say, no. No. Decoding the messages is not difficult as well in the classical art. Also, you see that how biblical figures and those kind of, let's say, stories in the Bibles, in the Old Testament, how they were kind of shared with the vast audience through pictures.
Hello everyone, welcome to School of Athens. We have Reetwika, Mitra in our studio today. Hi Reetwika, would you like to give an intro about yourself to our viewers?
Sure. Hi everyone. So I'm Reetwika Mitra. I'm currently working as a product manager in SAP Labs. I did my engineering in electronics and communication like long time back. And yeah, I'm basically coming from West Bengal.
Okay. Would you like to elaborate more from your childhood to now, how you entered the art, into art? How did you enter in art?
Yeah, sure. So I think since the beginning, I always had an inclination towards art. But I, of course, did not have the right opportunities. We did not have proper schools. And I remember my earliest memory is that of a school which was quite far away from my house. I used to go there, but then it was a huge school. So there were a lot of kids and a lot of people of different ages. And there used to be this huge field where people would sit and, they would paint. And I remember my first assignment was to draw an apple. So apple is the beginning of everything. So I think, as usual, I drew an apple, I painted it red. It was with oil pastels. I still remember that. But then the sir, he came back, he just took my picture and I thought, yeah, that's the most beautiful thing that I actually created. But he sat there and he made it into a three-dimensional thing because he brought in the values, he brought in the color variations. And I really, sat there and I was looking at how he was doing it. And I think that was the first time that I realized what art is really, right? I mean, in schools, of course, we drew mangoes and fruits and mountains and stuff. And we never thought that, okay, mountain is, of course, brown in color, right? And we painted brown. And apple is red in color. But then when you see really that, there is so much of depth into anything that you make, I think that's an eye-opener. And I think that's the thing which triggered that curiosity in me. And of course, I could not continue, unfortunately, because it was quite far away from my place. But I was really sad that I could not continue. And I always kept complaining to my mom that, please find me a good art teacher. But then, of course, we never found one. But then that thing, it was always stuck in my mind that at some point in time, I would continue this. God knows when, but of course, I'll continue this. And but then what I did was that the variations, the values that he was bringing in with that apple, I took that as an example. And whenever there used to be any art assignment in school, in class with our art teachers, like drawing a mango, for example, I used to explore different shades of yellow, for example, in case of a mango, and bringing in the variations of the value. And that I kept on practicing with different, objects that we were given at the time of doing the schooling. And I think, that's how I continued. But of course, I would always copy pictures, references. I was a fan of doing cartoons. So yeah, I think that's how I continued. And after coming here in Bangalore, of course, I started my career. It was really, really busy. I didn't have time, and of course, I didn't think about pursuing art at that point in time. But now I am at a certain stage where I do have some time for myself, and it was, I think, 2 years back or so when I started thinking that let's explore and see how I can continue this passion which I had. Yeah,
that's nice to hear. And how about art? how it is, impacting your personal life, right? Because it's very connected to you.
Yeah, yeah.
What is I can feel right now as you are telling about. And even, yes, I have been with you from very long. You are painting and also I have some kind of connection with you. So
Yeah.
I feel that you, how art is impacting your life.
Yeah, I would say that, first of all, I used to think that I'm a very impatient person because normally, how I have, how I have spent my childhood and also how I have been taking on my careers. I'm usually a very ambitious kind of a person. So I have set a goal and then I have to achieve it no matter what. And I think even in school, I think I used to be that kind of a person. So therefore, I think that's why I was very impatient, because if I have a goal, I have to achieve it. And then I'm totally thinking about it. And then, I have to do it as soon as possible. And of course, impatience is something which does not work in today's world, right? And especially in Bangalore, it doesn't work. So you need to have a lot of patience. And I think when I started with art, somehow naturally this patience grew. And even without me consciously realizing it, because then I would see that in my office and meetings and stuff, things that would normally, frustrate me, so, but I saw that, my saturation level increased. So I would not get normally frustrated. And I was able to handle situations much better compared to how I was handling them before. So I think that's how it has impacted my career as well. And in addition to this, being in the role of a product manager requires creativity, because you have to think about, you're given a problem and then you have to think about the best solution for the customers and partners. And I think with art, that creativity is also somehow boosted. And it starts reflecting in every arena of life. So I think that is how it has been impacting me personally in my career and also, in my growth as well.
It's very interesting to talk to you. Okay, and do you have any particular mentor, or I would say any particular artist which you feel as your mentor and you are very passionate about creating and following him, basically, him or her? Any particular person you would like to describe or tell about?
Yes, I would say that I was always attracted towards the work of Rembrandt, because he plays with light and shadow in such a way that if you look at his painting, you feel like turning twice. And then it kind of captures your gaze, and then you are locked into it. And then you are like kind of looking into the painting and trying to find out what is it that he has painted. So there is some attraction in the paintings that I see from Rembrandt. But slowly, I think I also started exploring other painters around his time before as well, like, for example, Rubens and Caravaggio. And Caravaggio is kind of my latest interest. So he's the latest guy that I'm really pursuing, and also Rubens, for example. So I think there is not a lot of literature about Rubens. I tried searching, but I didn't find a lot of literature. But then if we see, for example, his works, the way he represents human anatomy,
It's different.
it's very fluidic. It's very easy flowing, and I think that's what I really love about his thing, that it comes so naturally in his paintings. You don't see a lot of effort in the figures that he has painted. It seems like it's free flowing, and that's something which is very interesting, because if you try to replicate the same, it's very difficult. It requires a lot of practice for somebody who kind of achieved it at that level.
Yes.
I think it requires a lot of practice. And I think that is something where I always love challenges. And I think that is something where I find it quite challenging. And therefore, it has kept me locked in, these different artists around the Baroque period.
Have you ever tried copying old masters' styles, or like have you ever
I
tried the
actually,
color palette itself?
Sure. So I actually started doing that because I think during the course that we were doing, somehow I always felt that I'm really bad at human anatomy, and but then I thought that, okay, let's take that as a challenge, because if I'm bad at it, then let's see how bad it can be. So I was exploring works over the internet, and this is when I came across this work from Rubens called The Descent of the Christ.
Yes.
And that kind of captured me, and I was thinking about it like day and night, because the way the expressions were portrayed, and I think especially on Christ and everybody around him, and the composition and the way it's designed around him, and he's in the center. I think that was something which really I kept on thinking, and then finally I said, okay, let's take the courage and pick up the paintbrush and let's see where it takes me. So therefore, I started copying it, and while I was copying it, I discovered a lot of styles, because it's difficult, because it's painting to painting, right? So figuring out, and that too, it's an old painting, so therefore the colors have oxidized and so on. But still, I think you see the way the variations and how the light flows smoothly across the different textures and so on. So I think that was something very interesting. So I'm still doing it, not completed it yet. But yeah, I think every day I learn something new when I continue to do it.
Okay. What do you think classical art impacting the modern era right now, which is going on? How it's impacting, and how the artist, who's basically the classical artist, how they are keeping themselves alive, because it's really hard, right? To keep themselves alive, and actually we all are struggling right now to be in the era.
Yeah, so I think it's already stood the testimony of time, right? So it's been like 400 years.
Correct.
And when we talk about classical art, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, the 1500s, Raphael.
Yes.
And then we come across Caravaggio, 1600s, Rubens and Rembrandt, the entire 1600s.
Yes.
So I think it is such an important thing to see that even after 400 years, we are talking about their paintings, right? And I think even after 400 years, we have not been able to decode the messages that are kind of expressed through the paintings, through different symbolisms, right? The composition, right? What is the formula behind the composition? So I think every artist, they were so thorough with it, right? And they were so thorough with the colors. I mean, today we have the privilege of having colors, whichever color we want. I can just go to Amazon and I can, I can search it and I can order it.
Yeah.
But if I think about the time of 1600s, the color palette was so limited, and it was limited to earth colors.
Yeah.
But using the earth colors, they created such wonderful pictures that continues to capture your, attention, that continues to attract even today.
Today, though.
And I think that already speaks about what classical art is all about, right? Because decoding the messages is not difficult as well in the classical art. Also, you see that how biblical figures and those kind of, let's say, stories in the Bibles, in the Old Testament, how they were kind of shared with the vast audience through pictures. And today we have the movies and those kind of mass media kind of a thing, where people can actually see these things. But in those days we never had that, and paintings were possibly the only mechanisms by which people could actually relate to God. And how the painters actually were the mediators between the stories and the audience. And I think that is how the painting speaks for itself. And I think that is something which is still unparalleled even today.
How about the color palette? Would you like to describe any color palette which you have explored, and as you are following the old masters, would you like to elaborate some of the color palettes which is interesting for you?
I love earth colors always, and I do not love, because I get very confused when I see too many colors around me. So I stick to burnt umbers and siennas and ochre. Ochre is my favorite color. It's a multi-versatile color. You can use it everywhere. And I think raw umber I love. Really love, because I think
different.
It gives a lot of different possibilities when you mix it with different types of colors, and it gives the classical feeling, right? The backgrounds and everything, that's umber everywhere. So I think that's why I love earth colors. And recently, when I was doing this Descent of Christ, I had to explore flesh tones.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of YouTubing to figure out, how people actually go for flesh colors. And the interesting thing about flesh colors is it also emerges from earth, because think about it. Even, if you look at our flesh colors, we are composed of earth, right? So I think it's just the variations of the earth colors, the different amount of color mixes, the undertones, for example, and everything. And there is a little bit of biology also to it, because if you see two types of skin colors, either you
Yes.
have a warm undertone or you have a cool undertone.
Yeah.
So if you have a warm undertone, and although we have these veins, and skin is transparent.
Yes,
Right?
it is.
So therefore, you do a lot of glazing on top in order to really bring about this transparent effect of the skin. And if you see these veins under a yellow undertone skin, it appears green, because
Yeah, it does.
blue plus
Bluish.
yellow is green. And if you see it under a cool undertone, it appears purplish.
Purplish.
So I think these are such wonderful things that you can actually explore with only limited, palette of colors.
Correct.
And I think that is what makes it so interesting, because you can generate so many different variations of colors with only a limited set of colors. And I think that is also exactly what our masters were doing, because they did not have access to so many different colors that we have as of today. So they had this limited palette of earth colors, and they were generating such beautiful paintings out of it. So yeah, I think I sometimes I feel I should really have access to that, some time machine where I can go back to that era and I can
get that.
really look at masters, how they painted, and really follow that process.
So I would like to ask, like, which are your favorite paintings you have done till now?
I think I started with still life, and I still love still life. So I think the first painting which I made, I was very tensed. To be honest, I think we started with acrylic. I think I was not very tense during acrylic because I had tried acrylic before. So I knew, for example, how the medium is, and how to play around with it.
Okay.
How much water to add, and so I was aware of it. And where there is awareness, then you don't feel that scared,
Yes.
right? So you don't feel overwhelmed. So I think acrylic was still fine. But I was really waiting for oil, because I think because of how you guys also kept on telling that, oil is like,
awesome.
that's the awesome thing.
Yeah.
And I knew that all classical art and everything was done in oil. So
Oil.
therefore I was very, looking forward to when should I start with oil. And I was counting my acrylic paintings that, okay, once it gets over, then we start with it. But I think the first oil painting when I started, I was tensed, because that medium was totally new to me.
Different.
It was very different. It's new, and I didn't know, for example, how my brush was flowing across. I was not accustomed to the kind of flow of the brushes with every paint that I was applying. I didn't know how the outcome would be, because I had never experienced it before. So I think I was very tensed. But then I think slowly, when I started to get to know the medium, so then the medium was not a stranger to me anymore. And when the medium is not a stranger to me anymore, so then I created my friendship with, with oil.
And once
I
the
think-
friendship is done, then you can experiment a lot of
Yes.
things with it.
Yes, I think once you know the medium well, then you know that, okay, if I give this kind of a stroke, then that's the kind of outcome I'm going to get. So then let's see what if I give the other kind of a stroke. So I think that risk, and I think that courage, so to say, I think that is something you can take only once you know the medium well. And I think it is still an exploration process for me. I think I've done 4 or 5 paintings so far in oil. But yeah, I never get bored of it, because it is absolutely wonderful. I think the smoothness, and I think the way the brush glides, and the way the colors, they kind of, even after, say, today, if I apply the paint and I see it tomorrow or day after tomorrow, it appears very different, and it gives that vintage look. And that is something which I really, really love, and that's why I love oil as a medium.
Okay. Have you explored any of the old masters' work in real life? And how was the feeling if you did?
So I think pre-COVID times, 2019, I guess, I had a business trip to Germany. And then soon after, when the business trip was over, then, few of our colleagues, we decided to go for a Euro tour. And in that Euro tour, I think we went to Paris. And in Paris, as you know, we have this Louvre,
Yes,
right? Where
yes.
it's a huge museum. And I had absolutely no expectations of what I would see inside, right? So I was standing in the queue, and just like every other person in the queue, I was waiting for my turn. And when we went inside, it was a totally different world. which I had never experienced before. We have these really large size paintings, which are like 3 times bigger than human height.
Human height.
So the width as well. And when you see the paintings there, plus the classical touch, and then you know that these are like 500 years old, 400 years old.
Yes.
You are really shifted to a different time zone. You don't feel that, I am in 2000s. So I feel that I am kind of transported to that era where all the artists are surrounding me and they're talking to me through their paintings. So I think that was a very subtle, experience which I had, and I think that was also the first time where I came face to face with classical art. I was really looking at how realistic things could be, like for example, the fur, right? So there was this painting where it was a coronation of a king. So the king was kneeling down, and he had this huge cloak which was made out of fur. And it was so realistically done, and I was wondering how did they do it, because I tried it before, and of course without knowing the techniques and stuff, just exploring, but I couldn't do it. And I think that was the mystery, and that was also the thing which kept on coming back to me, that how can I decode this, how did he do it? So I think that's how with every painting I found something or the other. And then of course there was this famous Mona Lisa. So I was hoping to see Mona Lisa like one wall, big wall with the painting, but then it's a small one and it's kept center, in one hall. And every people were all flooding and they were looking at this painting. And then I looked at it, really face to face. And then I was wondering, why is it so famous? Because it looked very normal at the time, but of course maybe I didn't also have that artistic mindset in order to decode what was actually painted. But of course I think that's how we covered, and we couldn't even cover half the floor in the time, because it's such a huge museum and there are so many floors and so many paintings, so we couldn't cover it. So I think that was the first time that I saw something live, and then afterwards I also went to this Van Gogh's museum in Netherlands. So there also I saw Van Gogh's work, and it was nice because they give you kind of a headset where with every painting you can play, for example, the story behind the painting. What did the painter think at the time, and how did he compose it? What was the technique of paint that he was using, and so on. So I think that was again an interesting thing. But I really miss, those kind of opportunities here in India. I mean, it would be so nice to have such kind of museums and such kind of education for the vast public. But that was basically how I saw paintings firsthand.
What's your further aim after 5 years, where you want to see yourself with art? If you're pursuing properly and you're learning a lot of stuff, right? After 5 years, where do you want to see as an artist?
So I really hope this video is not watched by my office guys, but they already know me that I am a big fan of art and I'm pursuing art. But in 5 years, maybe I would like to pursue art more seriously than what I'm doing as of today. I would definitely love to go for exhibitions and have my paintings exhibited. And I would like to bring back, for example, this classical art, which is somehow I feel missing in India at the time. Because I think it's not because people don't like it. I think it's just the lack of awareness, and that is exactly what I feel that to coach people and to really make them aware of how classical art really is.
I see.
Yeah.
So any suggestions you would like to give upcoming parents, and right now how much important the art is, and how can we change it in India, the education using behind art? As of now everyone thinks it's hobby, right? So how can we change the mindset of a human, if we can tell the new parents?
Yeah, I know in India we always have this mindset, which I also have, and I think it has been coming down from different generations, that science is the superior most stream, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think considering that science and art are two different streams, I think that's the place where most people make mistakes, because they think art is just paint something and done. But art is very much scientific, because if you look at art, you see light and shadow, and that's physics. And in science, it's it's a kind of a Boolean thing, so it's either yes or no. It's very logical, but in art, there is no logic, right? It's so subjective. An art which might be interpreted by you is very different than possibly my interpretation, and that creates so many permutations, combinations, that it's a very deep subject. And I think that's why I would say that let's not have this mindset that art is something inferior to science, or something which is does not match with science at all. But yeah, let's explore art. And I would say that I always believe in 3 Ps. Then when it comes to any kind of, let's say, art, not just painting, but also music and dance and stuff. And I think those 3 Ps are that first thing is you need to have a passion for it. Without passion, you don't have the fuel to go for it. So therefore, passion is the first and foremost ingredient. I think the second thing that you need is patience. So without patience, any form of art, I think it requires patience. And with patience, you will see how beautiful the thing actually evolves. It's a process of evolution. It doesn't happen overnight. And I think the third thing that you need is practice. So you continue to practice, and practice. Just like I think we have been doing since childhood with our normal education, school books and everything, practicing and stuff. Art is also something that you practice. And I always feel that even after 100 years, if I was still alive and I was doing a painting, and if somebody would say, is this your best painting? I would say, no, that's not my best painting yet. I do not know what my best painting is. And I think that's the wonderful part of art, that you will never know what the best is.
Correct. So it was so nice talking to you, Reetwika. And I hope you continue your 3 Ps which you have introduced today, which is practice, patience, and passion. Right? So thank you so much for having, we are very glad having you here with School of Athens. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me here.